A lot of us look up to high-level athletes and model our training after them. But what is harder to see is the level of attention to detail and self-awareness that makes these high performers great. Just like you need to train your body, you need to do the work between your ears. This cerebral work pays dividends, and all high-level athletes have done it or have a coach who knows how to optimize their performance. Over the next 3 episodes, we're gonna teach you how to improve your athletic self-awareness.
In the first episode, we discuss workout strategy and pacing. Today, we talk all things game day execution, teaching you how to properly implement and adjust your strategy and pacing plans. In our final episode, we'll share the importance of film review, allowing you to become more self-aware so you can optimize your workouts.
You guys already know what the deal is. This is a multi-episode podcast series. Last episode, we talked about 3 workouts, process for strategizing a workout. We used 3 examples, and now we're going to talk about how do you properly execute on the strategy. So everyone can make a plan. Mike Tyson is famous for saying everyone's got a plan until what happens. Yeah, CrossFit punches you in. It's not in the face. It like punches you in the heart and lungs and muscles. It punches you everywhere.
Needles all over your body.
Yeah, just pain.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to assess a workout and come up with a pacing plan. It's another thing to actually execute on it. So that's what we want to do today. And I think the first thing is to have a quality warm-up in place so you actually are preparing your body, not only your mind, but your body to get after the workout. Yeah, for sure. I think, man, the CrossFit sporting market has a lot of people that under or over, but I think more people under warm up and prepare for a max effort output. And I think some of that's just the nature of most people learn to do CrossFit through a class structure. You come in, there's a quick warm up, there's some strength work, there's a 5-10 minute window before you get to do your Metcon. But in a real sporting setting, like if somebody's preparing to do a 1 mile long time trial, like a run, they might do 30 to 60 minutes of preparation to get their energy systems and body prepared to do that. So number one, it's the most easy, is actually spend the time to warm up. General framework would be just general cyclical stuff, getting your body temperature up. Could be 10 to 20 minutes sitting on a bike, sitting on a rower, getting moving. A lot of times people avoid that because they're so anxious. Their heart rate, they feel like their heart rate's already elevated and they don't want to like waste their energy.
Yeah, we call those wanksters.
Yeah, the wanksters.
Are you still going with this, Chris?
Yeah. So
hate it or love it, you got to warm up.
Oh my God. Kick this guy out.
Yeah, get him out of here.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the first thing, is just get your general body warm. From there, you got to kind of look at what does this workout require from a mechanical system. Like our 3 examples, if you saw the last podcast, you already know them. But if you don't, 50 cal row, 50 strict handstand push-up, 50 cal row is the first. Next one, 50 double unders, 5 snatches, 50 double unders, 5 snatches, 50 double unders, 5 snatches. We use Brandon as the example, and the weight went 145, 185, 225. So that's going like, let's just say like 60, 70, 85% of his current 1 rep maxes as just examples. And then the final one, 15 cal row, 15 burpees, 10 rounds for time. So each one of those has a little bit of a different stress on the mechanical system. Rowing in number 1 and number 3, there's not that much mechanical stress, but you do need your hips and knees and ankles warmed up to get into your catch position. So the real stress mechanically is handstand push-ups, getting your shoulders and wrists ready to invert and have your whole body upside down. Most people like spend most of your time with your hands below your shoulder line.
Unless you're Alexis Raptis. I found out the other day that she goes to sleep with her hands over her head.
And Pip.
Not on purpose. That's just what they do.
Oh, I thought it was on purpose.
Oh, was it on purpose? I missed that part.
I don't know how someone could do that. That sounds so uncomfortable.
I would suffocate myself with my shoulders and pecs.
It's like stretching.
Yeah. I put my hands overhead and my shoulders choke me out. How did Max die? Well, he thought Alexis was fit. He tried to sleep like her and choked himself. Anyway, so you have your general warm up. That then leads you into your specific mechanical warm-up for the workout.
Joint specific, maybe?
Yeah, joint specific's a good way to say it. So in that example, you do wrist preparation for getting inverted and wrist stretches and overhead mobility stuff to make sure your overhead position is good, general handstand kick-ups. And you progress that until you're doing a couple handstand push-ups. And then from there, after you've done the general warm-up stuff. So your body's kind of hot, you're sweaty, you know, you can do all the movements in it, then it becomes specific. And here's where I think it's a blend of like body and mind, because you have your initial strategy. We already walked through our strategies and got our end times on the last podcast. Now you have an opportunity to kind of stress test your own strategies and go through a more specific, okay, this is how I'm going to go and do it. So we thought it would be cool to just keep following this theme and say, okay, well, how would you kind of think about getting yourself warmed and stress testing your ideas with these three things? And from there, after we do that, it's okay, now what do you think about when you're in the process of executing? So do you want to kind of walk through 1, 2, 3, just general, like, okay, this is it. This is a workout. We're going to go out there. I wish we could actually do it and be like, all right.
There will eventually be videos of Brandon doing this.
But I mean right now. Just be like, hey, you got 30 minutes to get ready.
Stay tuned, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm getting ready, let's say just for the first workout that
50
Max
cal
gave
row,
example.
50 strict handstand push-up, 50 cal row.
That one's a little bit more simple because there's not going to be a ton of joint specific warm up. You still, for those that have bad overhead positions or really tight wrists, you're going to want to spend a lot of time on the joint specific stuff. For me, my overhead position is pretty good. My wrists are pretty good. So I'm going to limit that time and focus more on making sure that my rowing mechanics are really solid and that I'm actually getting my heart rate up to where it's going to be on the last row of this, which is hopefully a sprint. It probably won't be at that point because it's just hard to be able to.
But it's going to be a sprint effort because you're holding a fast pace while you're fatigued.
On that note, the community as a whole, do you feel like they do that, the whole getting their heart rate up to where they're
Yeah, it's funny because Max talks about this already. He says some people either warm up way too long or way too short, and that is true. Like we were just at Legends competition this past weekend. It's a bunch of Masters athletes, and we saw that. Like some people just kind of jump right. They warm up for 5 minutes and they go out there on the floor and bring the crazy intensity. Or those that have to spend an hour and a half because they have maybe some joint limitations. There's probably again a blend of in between that. Maybe a good 30 to 45 minutes is a good place. Most people, though, that warm up too short, they're just scared to go too hard in what they call waste energy or waste reps on certain movements. So, and some of that is understandable. Like you don't want to do 25 or 30 handstand push-ups if you're not good at handstand push-ups before this particular workout with 50 strict handstand push-ups.
So me and Brandon are good examples of this. In his strict handstand push-ups would be a huge personal separator in a positive direction in this workout.
Because as we said last episode, you could do 50 in a minute 40 or something.
A minute. Yeah, while he's fresh. For me, 50 strict handstand push-ups just by itself right now would probably take me 10 minutes because I would get to the point that I'd be failing them and then I'd be doing singles with 15 or 20 seconds rest in the end. So I'd maybe go like a set of 10 and then a break and then a set of 8. And I'm like already 18 out of 50 done, but then those sets will start getting much smaller. Right. And so for me, I don't want to do a lot of handstand push-ups in my warm-up because I'm burning my triceps and my pressing muscles, but I would still maybe do pike handstands. I would do kick up into a handstand, do a negative and kick down. I still don't want the muscles not to be fired and ready. And I might also row hard to get my heart rate up and then kick up into the handstand so that I feel, okay, this is what it's going to be like when you're actually in the workout. So you still do a movement specific warm up, but it's specific to kind of like your plan and your strategy and your capability.
Yeah, sure. Brandon, you said you were sympathizing with people who might not want to waste it, quote unquote, during the warm up, but how are you going to finish that?
Yeah, I just, because I understand that some movements are true bottlenecks, like a handstand push-up. Now we're going to talk about workout 3, which I think is a really good example of like people there's no bottleneck there and people really under warm up. They don't realize how hard a 10 round for time with 15 row and 15 burpees. Everyone sees it and it's like, wow, that's going to be hard, but they don't warm up enough to be able to kick hard in those last, let's say 3 or 4 rounds. We'll get there in a second. If there is a bottleneck, like Max said, maybe you modify that movement. So if it's handstand push-ups, Max, when he warms up, is going to do pike variations or like maybe like a yoga push-up as he kind of warms into it. For me, I'm actually going to get on the wall. I'm just going to limit the actual amount that I do. So I may only total 15 handstand push-ups in my warm-up that are like true strict handstand push-ups, but I'm going to spend a lot of time on the row. It's 100 calories. So I'm going to spend 15 minutes just in an easy cyclical warm-up. And in that time, I actually like to switch it up. So I'll do a 5-minute ski because I want to make sure my upper body's getting blood flow. I want to have kind of a little bit of a pump in my triceps and my shoulders. I'll do a 5-minute row, finish with a 5-minute bike to kind of flush. And then I'll do my specific work. After that, let me talk about specific work for me, I guess.
Sure.
It's very basic.
Hold on. Can I pause you? So sorry, when I started that question, the original thing I actually asked was, and you gave lots of good stuff, so I'm glad we did it, but was getting the heart rate up to that high. Do you feel like a lot of people miss getting their heart rate high?
Yeah, that's what I meant, is that they're afraid that they're going to work too hard and then be blown up before they even start the workout.
And you're saying?
I'm saying the opposite is probably true. Like most people aren't, 90% of people in the sport never warm up enough.
Yeah.
And there are some that over warm up. I think Travis probably has pushed too hard in warm ups before because he really likes to get ramped up. But even then, it's rare that happens.
The distinction there is that you, when you say warm up enough, you don't mean length of warm up. You just mean the intensity.
The intensity. Yeah. I'll run through this exactly what I would do for this workout. So when do you have something?
Well, you finish because I don't want to cut you off, and then I'll come back to it.
Why? I just did 100 times. It was fine.
The joint specific, when we get to workout 2, is going to be much different. I have to spend a lot of time in the bottom of a squat for the snatch. But for me, like I said, my overhead positions are still good. So I'm going to spend maybe only 2 to 3 minutes doing a wrist warm up. I like to have my wrist feel really good so I can just kick right up and go into fast handstand push-ups. And then maybe another 2 to 3 minutes doing some shoulder positional work. I actually will follow. We have these great warm-ups on YouTube that are follow along, and we have one that's just upper body gymnastics pressing follow along. And I will do that. Like we wrote those, a couple years ago, and I still use them every single time I do a pressing warm up. Walk through that it takes maybe 3 to 4 minutes, like I said. And then I start my specific warm up, which is going to be 85% on the rower, really ramping myself up to faster than I'm going to hold on the rower to get a feel for exactly how fast I can go, and then only a few handstand push-ups. So what it would look like maybe is 3 to 4 total sets of 15 cal row at game pace or faster. Each set, I'm going to get a little bit faster. So maybe I start at 1,200 cals, set 2 is at 1,400 cals, set 3 may even be at 1,600 cals, which is much faster than I want to hold, into 5 strict handstand push-ups, back into the row for another 10 cals. And I know people are like, well, that's 25 calories and there's only 50 on each end. It's like, well, yes, I want to make sure that all of my systems, the global systems of my body, are working properly, and that my heart rate and respiratory systems are primed for when I start the workout.
Also, if you're at the CrossFit games and the workouts come up and you go back into the warm-up areas, this is what people are doing. They're not like, you see what their volume, like they put up the rep counters of the volume that they do just in the workout. It's like, oh, they did this many squats. They all warm up. There is very few people that are kind of like burp and go type athletes where it's just a little bit of stretching and go.
Burp and go?
Yeah. Burp and go was the concept that we used to have in the wrestling room. Like some people would just show up and then like, you just ate lunch and you burp and you're like, all right, I'm ready to go. Shake it out. I think of that type of athlete where you go little foam rolling, 5 minutes on the thing, 1 or 2 reps and get on the floor. That type of athlete is like almost dead now. Almost all of them go in, and it's like doing almost a full workout before you do the workout. That's what an appropriate warm up is. Like you don't want to be fatigued, but you definitely want to get your system up and running to the way that it's going to be in the workout. When I was going to cut Brandon off earlier, because you made the heart rate comment, different workouts are going to have different heart rate profiles and also for different people. So in a workout like this, if this came out and unless they made the time cap really generous, I'd probably get time capped just because of how slow, like every year in the open, if there's strict handstand push-ups, tons of people get capped, even good people. But let's say that it was an endless time cap and I could make it. I would have to row pretty easy in the beginning and I'd have to save energy. So that way, when I finished, I could kick up to the wall. I'd be doing my 50 strict handstand push-ups. My heart rate would probably not be high there because I can't push that movement in reps enough. And then my 50 cal row at the end would almost be like a max effort sprint. Yeah. That's such a different way that the workout's going to feel to me than you. Cause I, no matter how tough I am, like I'm going to go out and, oh my God, I'm going to do them. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to get to failure. Like there's just nothing I can do from a physical capacity standpoint to get my heart rate elevated in the context of strict handstand push-ups. So for me, in my preparation, my warm-up might not require a lot of max heart rate stuff. It might more just require like, okay, I'm going to do some slow rowing, kick up into the wall to simulate as if I was going to go on there, then get on the other rower and kind of kick. But you can't really make that interpretation until you kind of strategize what the workout's going to feel like. So you do your strategic stuff,
Which we talked about in episode 1.
Yeah.
Shout out to our boys.
Shout out episode 1.
50 Cent.
Yeah. And then that kind of dictates how hard you can go and what you focus on.
Totally. Especially with movements like, or any bottleneck movement, like the handstand push-up in workout 1 of our example, or the snatches in workout 2.
Let's move into 2.
Cool. Yeah.
Did you finish 1?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the walkthrough. And let's do workout 3 for how we would actually strategize around. Because I think that would help everyone to kind of understand that how do we wrap this up or tie a bow in the present.
Were we going to come back and talk about during workout stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll finish with that.
Yeah. Okay, so then we're jumping out of order, go from that to workout 3.
We could do workout 2.
Let's do workout 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the sequencing.
Okay, so 50 double unders, 5 snatches, progressive weight for 3 rounds, 145, 185, 225. Now, both movements are more mechanically stressful.
Totally.
It's plyometric jumping. Some people call it rest, but for most people doing double unders is still jumping and landing and rebounding. And then snatches is shoulders open, wrists prepared for loading, hips open to get to depth, ankles open to get to depth. It's the overhead squat in a snatch, unless it's like all power snatches, is probably the most mechanically demanding movement that we see in CrossFit at a regular basis for like intermediates, elites, and all athletes that they do. So now it's a different type of warm up, right? Than what we saw in that first one.
It's totally different. And especially for me, it's actually a really good example. So warm up 1, the handstand push-ups aren't really, I'm not as worried about them. And my overhead mechanics are really good. Workout 2, my bounding mechanics aren't great because I have 2 screws in my ankle. And my squat position is not great because of that and some knee issues. So I have to warm up much longer, especially with the joint specific stuff, to make sure I can get into the positions. 1, just even for the double under to make that smooth, because otherwise I'm kind of like banging my heels. And then obviously for those heavier snatches where I'm worried about either being in a bad position where I miss or it just taxing me way too much where I have to fight every single rep.
Yeah. Also too, like if we go into the feel aspect of this, you're done with 50 double unders, 5 snatches, 50 double unders, 5 snatches, 50 double unders at around 2 minutes and 15 seconds. The 50 double unders, I don't know for sure, but I don't think it's like you won't drive to max heart rate doing that.
Yeah.
And you're pacing the original snatches. Then you go into basically strength work after that, where you're taking a lift every 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So touching max heart rate in that workout, not as necessary, because it's not going to happen in the workout. So your strategic thing, maybe something we maybe could add it or will now retroactively add to the workout strategy section, is when you go through those step 1, step 2, finding the limiters and going through how you'd break down the workout, you also can kind of project how or predict how you're going to feel in the workout. And then what you're going to feel dictates the warm up. If you're going to get a lot of leg burn, getting on a C2 bike and pounding out and getting some lactate and nastiness in your legs can be a good warm up. If it's going to be a max heart rate workout like number 3, getting your heart rate elevated super high is going to be good. If it's going to be like this to me is like almost like a strength capacity workout.
Totally.
So your warm up looks more strengthy than
strengthy and just like mechanically focused.
Yes.
You know, I again, I'm going to still do my general warm up because I want to make sure that I'm getting all of the global systems warm. So I'll do that for 15 minutes. I usually, like I said in the last workout, I like to kind of switch up the machine so I'm getting different body parts. So it's still
you like to switch the style up,
switch the style up,
and let them hate and watch the money pile up.
Yep, exactly. You better believe it.
He brought it.
So 5-minute ski, 5-minute row, 5-minute bike.
Yeah.
And then
this one could be good to do like he'd do his warm up however he wants, but run and row, because then you're getting a little bit of your calves ready for the jumping, and then you're doing a squat with a kind of squat in the rower where you're getting your knees, hips, ankles open. Right. So could be just a good way to think about making your cyclical warm up make sense also for the workout.
Yeah. And that's also a really good strategy to think about what are the patterns that I'm going to use in the workout. And then I can do my easier stuff, even in those same patterns to kind of ease into the warm up.
Yeah. Row, run, overhead squat with a PVC pipe in a 3-round easy kind of format.
Totally. For the mechanical stuff or the joint specific, I'm going to spend where I said, maybe 5 total minutes on the handstand push-ups. I'm going to spend 15 to 20 minutes on the mechanical stuff here because, again, I know my limitation is going to be in the squat pattern, where if I miss a snatch, that's going to cost me a lot of time. I said it's going to take me 3 minutes maybe to do those final 5 snatches. Well, if I miss one, now I'm adding another 30 seconds to it, which if I'm looking at a leaderboard, that's going to cost me a ton of spots. And so I want to warm up my shoulder position, my wrist, just like I would in handstand push-ups. But then the rest of the time is going to be either on my ankles, my knees, and my hips to make sure I can get below parallel on the squat, be really strong in those positions, and then obviously work on that overhead position where I'm catching the barbell, receiving the barbell.
Just give some examples for people that might not know a mechanical system warm-up for those things. Like, what are you actually doing in that time?
So the first thing is actually after my easy warm-up, I'm going to worry about the ankles first because the double unders also play a role in that. So I'll start with some really soft assisted pogo jumps. I like to basically hold on to a box or the rig. I'll just do some really soft pogo jumps. I don't do a ton of soft tissue work for my ankles beforehand. I found that for me,
is that just jumping up and down?
Jumping up and down.
So basically like holding onto a pole and using your hand to pull down on the pole when you're jumping. It's basically starting a jump with less body weight because you're just taking some weight off with your arms.
I'll start where it's like 20% body weight. I'm using a lot of arms because I don't want to get into like a max effort rebound, but I'm just trying to open up the ankles, like get a feel for, okay, I can bound off quickly. I can keep my double unders in rhythm. And then from there, I'll come back to where I'm doing true pogo jumps to really simulate the double under. Then I'll work on my squat positions. And I said this already, it's another plug for us because we have a great squat warm-up. I'll do that follow along squat warm-up. But for me, I spend a little extra time on knee flexion. So I'll do some drills like a size of sit, or I'll do some extra like natural knee extensions. I'll spend 2 to 3 minutes going back and forth between 2 or 3 movements that are really forcing deep knee flexion and then ankle flexion so that I can kind of open up those positions to get into the bottom of the squat. For someone like, I mean, Noah, he doesn't need to spend a ton of time on that because his ankles are really good. He has good knee flexion. His hips work really well. For me, I have to spend a ton of time to even get into that position so I can snatch.
So you're patiently waiting for a knee to warm up.
God.
To squat on.
So there are going to be people listening that have never heard 50 Cent music and get none of these references.
Patiently waiting for a knee to warm up now.
Noah, he's a good example. So he doesn't have mechanical limitations in the same way that he's going to like loaded stretch or do isometrics in these positions to open them up, but he'll want his movements more loose. So he'll take an empty barbell, sit in the bottom, and he'll kind of just like move and groove down there. Like he'll push his knees in, out, do some activation, bounce in the bottom, do some empty overhead squats, do some pressing snatch balances. And he's doing a mechanical system almost in the like prior to as the specific warm up for the snatch.
Right.
You're also going to have to do that, but he's kind of bypassing the movement ones by just making it quicker.
Yeah,
he's
I'm
just
doing all
more mobile,
like more passive and then active stretching first, like getting the joints,
opening them up so you can get into
exactly.
it. Yeah.
And then I'll do a full snatch warm up, which again, we have another follow along. I love doing that. Mike McGoldrick wrote it and it's an awesome, like it almost feels like a Metcon warming up into it. But I think that's important for me because I need to make sure I can get in those positions again. Once I do that, then I can get into my specific warm-up, which isn't going to be the same heart rate focus that I did have on workout 1 or I will have on workout 3, because as Max mentioned, it's more strength focus. So for me, a lot of that's going to be building to the 225 bar, and I like to hit the weight that I need to hit in a workout. Some people hate that. For me, I want the confidence and I want to be able to feel it 2, maybe even 3 times in a workout like this because I know I have to do 5 reps.
Yeah. Some people will only do the second bar. Like they'll go up to 185 and they'll be like, I'll feel 225 when I'm there. Other athletes will actually build above that top bar because they want to get there and know that the 225 might feel like 245 by the time you get there and you're tired. So they build up to like get their nervous system ready to go. Again, individual preference, and that's a practice and do it mindfully to figure out how you get ready. For Brandon, get to the top weight and hit it. So, and then once you did that, you'd rest and you'd go.
I'll do a couple intervals as well. So I'll build to that top weight. I rarely will go over the top weight, especially knowing that that's pretty heavy for me right now. It probably is closer to even 90%. I don't know. I'd have to actually do the math on it. But then from there, maybe I'll do 20 double unders and 3 snatches at 145. I know that sounds crazy because you're only doing 5, but again, I like to warm up and make sure that I'm confident. And then I'll do 20 double unders and 2 snatches at 185, 20 double unders, and then 1 snatch at 225, where I have certain rest times built into that. And then maybe I'll do one more round of just 145 or 185. Then I would rest 5 minutes. And that's something I actually didn't mention in the last one. Yes, I want to warm up really, really well, but then I'll take a nice long break before I start. Like I want to get my heart rate calm back down.
Almost get to full recovery after you do your warm up.
Exactly.
Okay, final one. 10 rounds for time, 15 cal row, 15 burpees.
Yeah, so this is the one that we talked about where there's probably a little more nuance because there's not a clear separator. So we're not really thinking about like, oh, there's a ton of mechanical stress on this movement, or this movement's going to take much longer than another movement, unless you're someone that's like maybe terrible at burpees or something. Yeah. So I know that when I start this workout, it's just going to be a breather. There's no bottleneck. I'm going to have to move the entire time. So the majority of my warm up here is going to be focused on making sure that I'm getting my respiration and heart rate as high as it will be in the workout. That's going to be pretty hard to do because eventually in this workout, I'm going to get to max heart rate.
It's going to creep as you go. So your warm up might not actually touch what you do here, but the intention is that you're going just as hard.
Exactly. So that is the goal. And that means it's going to be a pretty elongated warm up for me. So this general warm up will stay pretty similar. I sometimes will like when it's body weight movements to add those into the very easy warm up. So maybe it is, a minute row and then a couple push-ups and then a minute row and a couple of burpees at a slow pace.
Or inchworms or something that's similar to the movement.
Exactly. The specific warm-up, when it's something like this, there's not a ton of like mechanical stress. I still want to get into a really good squat position because the row requires that. I want to be able to get my armpits over my knees when I'm going into the rower. So I practice that. I believe it or not, that's a tight position for me. Some people can easily do that. So I'll open those positions up with my hips, my knees, my ankles, and then I start the warm-up. Now, the specific warm-up. This one is actually really good for those that need to get a game plan in place, right? Yeah. Maybe they're not sure how long a row will take or how long a burpee will take. And Max mentioned this in a podcast before this when we were talking about assessing a workout. There are so many transitions in and out of the rower where you need to practice that in your warm-up to know exactly how long that takes. The first thing I said in the last episode is the top end pace, like the fastest you could go is probably around 15 minutes because 45 seconds of rowing, 45 seconds of burpees. But now I need to add in my transitions. How many transitions do I actually have in a 10-round workout? How many times do I have to loosen my feet or tighten my feet if I'm going to do that? How long does it take me to actually get into the rower? Because some people like fumble it and grab the handle, misgrab the handle, whatever it may be.
Or floor plans. Like if it's rowers 5 feet from pull up or from the pull up bar that you're doing the burpees to,
totally.
You have to count the time it takes to get out, walk over and drop to the first burpee. Then you finish your last burpee, walk over, get to the rower, get your feet in the rower, and then actually take your first pull. Like all of those things. That's what separates on these workouts. It seems silly, but it's like, I think it's 19 total transitions back and forth. It adds up. If they're 3 seconds each, that's like just under a minute. And then if they're 5 seconds or 6 seconds each, that's like 2 minutes. So you're talking about a minute in a potential 15-minute workout. It's a huge separator in the workout. Oftentimes when people strategize and look at something like that, they're thinking pace on the rower and stay moving. They don't think, oh yeah, you have to keep your pace on the rower, but you also got to get your ass out of the seat and over to your first burpee quick, and then get your ass from the last burpee into the seat and up to your pace quickly.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that's a minute different in transition. It's probably even greater than
more
that.
Than
if we time that, it'd be 90 seconds, 2 minutes.
10% of the workout,
which is just crazy to think about. And to be fair, those that are more fit, it's easier for them to transition quickly. But let's just say you could beat 1,000 people on the leaderboard by just having one more deliberate transition. Yeah. Those are things that you want to practice in your warm-up. And then also when you're doing your training, and in another video, we'll talk about video review, where you need to nitpick that stuff in video review so you can get better at it.
I'm less fit, but I try to transition in a workout like that quickly so that I could row slower.
Yeah, why not?
If you can get on the rower and up to pace quick, you could potentially hold 100 cals per hour less, but still get the same time. If I go over kind of slow and recovered, that means I got to hold a higher pace. So I don't really like to do that. I'd rather move continuously, but be able to moderate my row pace, because I know that my burpees are probably going to take my heart rate close to max every round, doing 15 in a row, just getting up and down.
So let's break this down just real quick, because I want to make sure that this is really clear. If I said that it's going to take me at 1,200 cals an hour, 45 seconds to do the row, and I'll average, let's say 3 seconds per rep on the burpees, that's 45 seconds. So that's 90 seconds per round, which is 15 total minutes, but I haven't added in any transitions yet. In let's say a warm up, or if I'm doing this in a training session, a great way to do it is to time those transitions and then extrapolate that out for the 10 rounds. What then is my optimized time? And if I have to add 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to those transitions, then I know, well, 15 minutes actually isn't my fastest time. Maybe it's 17 minutes. Yep. It gives you a more realistic view of what it's like. And then that's a low hanging fruit of how I can beat maybe someone like Max if we're going at the same paces, but I transition quickly. Transition quickly back to the rower every single time. And maybe it's just at first, because I'm not that fit, I go slowly to the burpees, but I'm going to make every single transition back to the rower really fast. I cut off 1 second per round. That's 10 seconds total. Doesn't seem like a lot, but I can beat a peer or get a couple places higher on the leaderboard. Those are little things.
And to your point, in the last episode where we were talking about strategy, a lot of it was based on people knowing themselves very well or doing the review that we'll talk about in the next episode. But to your point here, it's like no matter what workout you're doing, you can learn your transitions during your warm up. So
totally.
It's like, if you're not doing that, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah. So, and this workout, your warm up is also your last attempt to refine your mindset and your plan.
Yeah.
Now, in workout number 1, I can't really in my warm up refine my plan because I can't do a bunch of strict handstand push-ups. In workout number 2, I don't think I could refine what's my rest time between reps at 225 in my warm up, because then I'd be doing a ton of reps at 225 and I'd be too tired to get into it. Workout number 3, you can actually like test rounds of it. You could do, and you could even, let's say you say, oh, the burpees are going to really mess me up, so I don't want to do those at pace, but I'll do 15 cal row and 10 burpees, and I'll go back and forth for 2 times. So you can get a feel for, okay, was I right with my pace on this? How long did the transitions take? And you can start to extrapolate what your times look like and compare to what your plan was. Sometimes in that process, you're like, oh man,
I was way off.
Yeah, I can't hold 1300. I'm going to change this to 1150. Or maybe you're warming up, you do 2 rounds and you're like, oh, I could start at 1300 instead of 1200.
Right.
So it's kind of your last time to make refinements to your strategy. So your goal in this warm up is to get your body right and your mind right. Body right, mind right, ready for war. Is that 50 lyrics?
Is it really?
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I was like, I know that from rap back in the day, but I don't know. If
we'll put it on the board.
It's not a 50.
Oh, man.
All right. So those are kind of warm up. And then when you get into it, I'd like to give just some like maybe execution and mindset tips in relation to these. I think the biggest ones that are most important are being deliberate and intentional with transitions and rest breaks. And the other one I think is how to deal with shit hitting the fan, because you make the plan and oftentimes you're like, oh, I'm going to get into it. It's going to be perfect. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, I was going to do 10 handstand push-ups, but I got to 5 and I was at failure.
Yeah.
You need to be able in the moment to create like strategic changes, and not what ends up happening a lot of times is people get lost in the comparison to what's happening to them relative to what they planned. So they'll be like, oh my God, I'm doing slower. I'm doing so crappy. I can't believe I wanted to do 10, but I can only do 5. David Bradley actually talked about that. He got into the workout. He wanted to do muscle ups at a certain rep range. He wanted to do like 10, 5, 5. He got kicked up and his core was blown up. His grip was blown up and he had to break down into sets of 2 by the end of it. And he said that in the workout, he was self-judging and self-criticizing because he thought he would be able to do better than his plan. It's very important in those moments to kind of just stay neutral and figure out just how do you keep getting the work done, whether it's singles or doubles, short breaks, not compounding the error. I think that's kind of one of the most important things to do in a qualifier. It's easier for high-level professional athletes that do this all the time to kind of stick to their plans. It's
probably because they have experience messing it up.
True. I think that you can do this in training too. Mia does a great job in our intermediate path of forcing athletes
Another
to
plug. Hey man, Brandon's going to get rich or die trying. Am I right?
Oh God.
No, I use this in my own training and with athletes. It may seem silly if you can do 50 unbroken toe to bar, but she'll make them do sets of 2 on a certain clock just to get practice of like when you're blown up in a workout and you got to do 2 and then rest 3 seconds, do 2. That may be David's best strategy at that point. Yes, it's disappointing that he can't do 10, 5, 5, but if I need to optimize the time that I have left with the reps that I have left, maybe instead of waiting to do 5, it's going to take me a 45-second rest. If I just did fast 2s on a 5-second clock or a 10-second clock, that allows me to get done 20 seconds faster. Well, that's a win in that workout.
Yeah. So that'd be, the most important. I'd say the other one, intentionality, is things that people lose time on is change in body posture. You get really messed up. step away from the barbell 3 steps, you bend over, sit down on your knee. Sometimes you have to do that, and some of those resting postures are actually better for people to rest in. But I think it's important to be intentional. Oftentimes people watch their videos back. They're like, wow, I can't believe I rested for 30 seconds on my knees. But being either aware of a clock or in your head, being on a count, like, okay, you're going to get into a posture, break away from your plan, give yourself a 10 count on the way down, or have a judge that's there that's keeping count for you. Those things can really help you execute on your plans and not let time bleed if you have to fall off of your plan.
Yeah. And the last one, we already talked about transitions, but I think it's really important to force transitions, especially in training, and get a feel for what is the fastest transition I can have between movements. When you're switching from one movement pattern to the next, I think it's a really good way to make up time. Max, you already said this of like, you're going to get over the rower fast, even if you go slower, because now you can't, you've earned the right to go slower because you beat me to the rower by 5 seconds. That's a really good way to do it.
Can I pause you real quick? I know I view it this way, and don't listen to what I say, because I'm not a competitive CrossFitter by any means, but I know when I do a Metcon and I see something like that, I'm like, oh, the transition's where I get to rest. And so do you think a lot of people view it that way? And is there any harm in, well, clearly there will be for certain people, but who should view it that way? Or tell me why that's the worst way to look. Give me something.
It's okay to do that, but it needs to be then part of your plan. What ends up happening with a lot of people that view it as a rest is they just bleed away a ton of time because they transition slowly and also rest at the same time, as opposed to transitioning, knowing, okay, I'm going to transition. It's going to take me 2 seconds to sit on there, and then I'm going to sit down there for 3 seconds and pull. So I think if you want good scores, and good scores is relative to you, you still need to be deliberate with accounting for that as your rest time, not transitioning.
Well, I don't want it to hurt anymore, so I'm going to rest.
Then the sport's not for you, my friend.
Everyone does it. To give an example of the 10 rounds of 15 cow row and 15 burpees, let's just say someone was perfect on their pacing plan as far as they kept 1200 and they kept 3 seconds per rep, but they did those slow transitions. You could lose, like we talked about, 4 or 5 minutes in that workout. So yes, you can rest, but maybe you just need to find a way in training to limit that rest each time. So maybe it's, okay, instead of that 8-second transition, I'm going to make it 7 and then 6. There's going to be a top end. Like everyone has to take transitions and everyone has to rest, but the more you can train into getting back on the barbell or getting onto the rower quickly, it's going to make you a better athlete.
Trainable is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's trainable. Also, too, it's different workouts it put a different emphasis on it. So workout number 1, there's only 2 transitions. One of them is getting off the rower to a wall, probably not going to take that long. No. And the other is from the wall into the rower. Not really that big of a deal. Contrast that to workout number 3, back and forth that many times for 10 rounds. So that's just part of your strategic oversight, basically looking at the workout and making that kind of strategic plan, knowing what the workout demands of you. So that is it for episode number 2 of our 10-minute podcast series that turned into 40 minutes.
Wait for number 3. It'll be 50. Yeah.
So we did strategy in number 1. You take that strategy. Number 2 is execution, which is really a combination of how you effectively warm up to get into it, and then also just some mindset and focus things that you can have. Ooh, I want to add to this. Chalk breaks. In CrossFit. A lot of times we didn't do a workout that had like 100 toes to bar in it, but a lot of times people do a set of 2, go get a chalk break, do a set of 2. And you look at a workout, it's like you did 10 chalk breaks. That kind of goes in line with transitions.
Just from all the years y'all have coached, what is the percentage of chalk breaks that were needed for chalk needed and just used as like a nervous habit?
I would say like 20% of chalk breaks are needed. And I think it's mostly in people.
How do you know which times you need it?
I would say it really, number one thing is heavy sweaters. People that just get wet in Metcons. Like you need the chalk because you're literally going to fall off the bar if you don't do
Safety
it.
first.
Yeah. Most of the time, I think people are just like, they're used to going up and doing muscle ups and they want their hands to feel good. So they put extra chalk on, but they actually already had enough chalk on their hands from before. And you watch most elites get into those workouts and there's no chalk breaks. They're just back and forth.
So a quick tip, and this is something that we did with our athletes at Legends. There was a workout that was so many heavy double unders into rope climbs and then crossovers into rope climbs and then regular double unders into rope climbs. So there's 3 different ropes that they set out, they provided. But you had to run
3 different of these ropes.
3 different of the jump ropes. Yeah, sorry. So you started your first one, and what I told each of the athletes is to have a piece of chalk by each rope. So they never had to go to a bucket. They weren't going to a bucket on their rope when they were doing the actual rope climbs. They could do their jumps, and then as they walked to the rig or run to the rig, they grabbed the chalk and chalked up on their way, and they could just drop that piece of chalk down. And then the next round, they would do the same thing with the next jump rope, so on and so forth. Or the other option, and I see a lot of women do this now with their sports bras, they just tuck a piece in. That's perfectly fine. Like grab it out, chalk up, and then put it back in on your transitions, but not in between the movements. Like if you're doing a toe-to bar, try to stay focused on the toe-to bar unless you absolutely need the chalk.
So that's kind of follows the theme of being deliberate with your transitions.
Totally. That's like chalk placement. But even then, do you think a lot of people, when they have it in the sports bra or they have it by the rope where they need it, are they overusing it?
Our athletes absolutely crushed it with that workout when they followed that tip. Like I think everyone, but maybe one did that exactly. Hey, Mike, did that perfectly because they had chalk in places that there was no excuse.
I get that if you have it.
20% is my number still.
No matter what.
20% of people taking chalk breaks probably really need them. I'd say 80% of them are just habitual and reflexive. I don't think it's increasing like performance or likelihood to not fall off a bar, for example.
I would agree with that. It's somewhere in there for sure.
All right. Got to keep those chalk companies paid. You know what I mean?
So that was 2 warm-up execution. Our final one will be
the granddaddy of them all.
Now you finished this damn workout. You had your strategy. Now you got to go and analyze and do some video review. But we're not going to do that now.
And it's pretty much like the circle of life, because what you learn in the video review is going to then set you up for your strategy,
for your new strategy.
Yeah.
So, I like that circle.
Who sings that song?
Does 50 Cent have a Circle of Life Elton John song?
I don't know. I know Eminem did that one VMA with Elton John. So there's like a little what do you call it?
Like
degrees of Kevin
6
Bacon.
Degrees of separation.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon is like 6 degrees of separation or something like that.
I want to play it.
Anyways, come on. See ya.